Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about web programming and why it's the scum of the earth. So let's get into it. Well, I'm not going to be that dramatic actually. The actual question is, Frederick, why do some programmers look down upon web development or web programmers and so forth? And this is a fair question because in a sense, I don't think that this is all that common anymore, but in a sense it is still, it's something that I have felt a few times. I have seen a few developers out there that, again, this is no different from the elitism that most people will experience in a professional, like in an expert field of some sort, because you always have these people who perceive themselves as being better at something or knowing more or so forth and so forth. And I can just surmise that these are either individuals who have been severely hurt during their life or something like that, or they have seen so much success within this area that they completely lack an understanding of that people do things for different reasons. It's kind of funny because some people just do not understand that the motivations behind why people do things may actually be different. It was one of the biggest insights when I was a kid, when I was younger, when I started to realize. I had this moment where it's actually funny because it was while I was playing a computer game with some friends, and I was super annoyed because I knew that we were working together, right? And I knew that my friends, like, I saw this pattern, like how they kind of got when they were in that group, and all of a sudden they started doing, like, they were kind of just running around, fooling around. They didn't really structure things, so the other team was kind of eating us alive. And I got super frustrated, and I said, like, guys, why the fuck are you doing this? Like, just, do this and that and this and this, and we just kind of started giving them directions, and they just kind of sprung back on me and just chewed me out. And then at that time, I just realized that I'm the guy who's in the wrong here, because what I didn't get was that they don't give a fuck about winning the match. They're just here to have a bit of fun. Like, I'm trying to win. Like, I thought that they wanted to win, but they don't. They don't care. They just want to play around. And if that means that we lose, or that means that everything falls to shit, then so be it, because they don't care. And that is something that is really, 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 really hard for people to understand. Some people, because they believe in their mind that their perspective on what's the goal of every single human being doing something is, like, that's the thing that is. And that's why it becomes alien to them. So for web developers, it usually comes down to the only people I really know that look down on web developers in general is, these are people who work within systems levels programming usually. I don't see it all that much with people who are more academically inclined, but the systems programmers and so forth, because there is this discussion about what is a real software developer. Now, some people claim that a web developer is not a real software developer because, well, they all have their own reason, I suppose, because you're not, working at the systems levels, you're not actually working on desktop applications, or, like, you can define it however you want. But that's the thing that people kind of look down on. And I will say that I think that the reason for this is because there is this idea that if you have, like, the level of abstraction on your tooling is a key factor here, I would guess. And basically what I mean by that is that think of it as a person who can do complicated arithmetic in their head, looking down on a person who needs a calculator to do the same thing. Now, they may get to the same results, but one depends on this external helpful tool or thing that makes their life easier. They're not at the same mental, like, the person who can do it in their head perceives the other person as being less cognitively able. Yeah, they're not as smart or they're not as capable as that person, and then they start looking down on them because they're kind of doing a similar sort of thing, or they're doing the same thing, but one is able to do it without that assistance while the other one depends on it. And that is the thing that is probably that's one of the bigger truths regarding this, if you ask me. Like, it's this idea that, well, the web is just this platform, right? You have all these higher abstractions. I mean, A web developer usually has a it's kind of like well, every web developer has pretty much the same sort of tools in their toolbox that they depend on. They don't necessarily need to learn how to do system calls or how to interact with an operating system or a kernel or something like that. They don't need to know these sorts of things. These are even lower things that they don't really touch. What they are interested in is usually, okay, this is a database, this is a web server, this is, you know, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, etc., like these established tools. Now, what I find interesting about this is that it is true to a point that you don't have to have as much in-depth knowledge about this underlying systems when you are a web developer as you would have to have if you were a systems level developer. But what I don't really, and this is the thing, it comes back to this, I suppose, sensation of value that the systems levels programmer feels that what they know is more intricate, more complicated, more valuable than what the web developer knows. Yet the web developer has the largest space within all of IT. There are more back-end developers or web-related developers in the world than any other place. They are, I mean, maybe that also adds to it that the systems developer feels a bit more exclusive, maybe. So I think that that's what it kind of comes down to, that you have these web developers who depend on all these tools, and the system developers, you mean, this is the kicker, right? They depend on other tools. I suppose that the closer to the hardware you get, the more entitled some people feel, the more skilled they feel, or so forth. But at the end of the day, you're still dependent on quite a lot of things. Not the same things as a web developer is, but if we switch this around, this is the classic one. I mean, if I've seen it many times where a very highly educated or highly successful person goes into something like, say, McDonald's or a supermarket or something like that, and very clearly shows that they look down on the clerk working the cash register. But, and you know, from the perspective of the things that I know are valuable, therefore I am very, you know, I'm better than you, basically. I know these things, I know a lot of advanced things that you don't know, and I make more money, etc., etc. And all, like, this is a social experiment I always wanted to do. It's like, just flip that. All right, you go and stand at the cash register and just serve all of these people right now, right here, right now. Because I can promise you that you won't be able to do it. And it's the similar situation here with web versus systems programming. If you flip these two people, they will be equally lost, I will guess. That's what I will guess. I will argue that I don't think I've ever met a die-hard systems level developer who can do CSS well, or JavaScript and so forth. And maybe they don't feel that they need to. Maybe they have these mental reasons that they dismiss that, oh, this is bullshit anyway, so why should I learn it? And that's okay. But for me, all I'm hearing is, you can't do it. So you kind of need us web developers to do it. We can pretend like it's not valuable, but considering that there's quite a lot of companies paying web developers quite a lot of money to do this, there seems to be a need for it. So what I want you to take away from this is that, at least from my perspective, usually why some people look down on web developers is because they don't perceive you as being as valuable as a system levels programmer, because you don't have usually the same in-depth knowledge of the underlying operating systems and kernels and so forth. You don't know you're not close enough to the hardware, and you depend on these higher level tools in order to do your job, and therefore you are not as smart or as valuable. When the reality is that you are in the highest demand in the world, pretty much. There are more jobs for web development than pretty much anything else in programming, and I so far have never met a programmer who focuses exclusively on computer science or systems levels development or high-speed trading or something extremely niche that could just jump in and be as good at web development as they can on that specific thing. Because the bottom line is that it's just another skill set. It is a valuable skill set, and I leave it to you to decide what's more valuable. Have a great day.